Kelly McGillis. She was Maverick's co-pilot on the ground, the brilliant, composed flight instructor who made Tom Cruise work for every single glance. In 1986, Top Gun turned Kelly McGillis into a global superstar, but the road to that cockpit had been anything but smooth. A year before Witness earned her Golden Globe and BAFTA nominations, she had survived a brutal assault that left scars no camera could ever see. She fought through those shadows with extraordinary courage, delivering some of the most quietly powerful performances of the decade, in Witness and then The Accused. But Hollywood's version of her story never felt entirely like her own, so she wrote a different one. She came out publicly, walked away from the machine, and eventually moved to North Carolina, where she now works full-time at a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center, helping people rebuild their lives from the inside out. At 68, Kelly McGillis has traded red carpets for something that actually matters. Not many people in Hollywood have ever made that trade, and truly meant it. Meryl Streep. After winning her first Oscar, she left the trophy sitting on top of a toilet tank and walked away. That detail, so perfectly, casually irreverent, tells you everything about Meryl Streep's relationship with fame. She has never needed it the way it has always needed her. She arrived in 1978 in The Deer Hunter with a single supporting nomination and proceeded to collect 21 more over the decades that followed, a record that belongs to no one else and likely never will. She mastered accents that native speakers couldn't place. She disappeared into characters so completely that audiences forgot they were watching an actress at all. Sophie's Choice, Kramer versus Kramer, The Devil Wears Prada. Each performance a completely different instrument played at its absolute peak. Decades passed, and the nominations kept arriving, as if the Academy had simply given up pretending anyone else came close. At 76 in 2026, she returns as Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada 2, and the entire fashion world is already quietly, nervously trembling. Goldie Hawn. Everyone assumed they knew exactly what she was. The giggling blonde from Laugh-In, the dizzy, sunshiny girl who couldn't possibly be serious. Then she won the Oscar. Goldie Hawn in Cactus Flower in 1969 walked directly through every assumption anyone had ever made about her, and came out the other side holding a golden statuette and a deeply knowing smile. She had been underestimated so thoroughly for so long that she eventually turned it into a weapon, building a production company that gave her complete creative control while Hollywood was still busy condescending to her. Private Benjamin, Overboard, The First Wives Club. Decades of pure, irreducible movie star charisma. And through it all, the relationship most Hollywood couples only dream about. Kurt Russell, 1983. No wedding ring necessary and absolutely no apology offered. They simply chose each other, again and again, every single day. At 80, having celebrated her birthday in late 2025, Goldie Hawn devotes herself fully to the Mind Up Foundation, bringing mindfulness to children worldwide. Still golden. Still, somehow, more than enough. Diane Keaton. She said, la-dee-da, 2 nonsense syllables, and somehow changed the way an entire generation thought about women, fashion, and love. Diane Keaton arrived as Annie Hall in 1977, wearing men's ties, oversized hats, and a joyful chaos the world had never quite seen before and has never replicated since. She won the Oscar. She defined a look, a feeling, a way of moving through the world as if beauty and anxiety and laughter were all the same thing. Through the Godfather trilogy, Manhattan, and Something's Gotta Give, she built a career of astonishing consistency and warmth. She never married, adopted 2 children in her 50s, renovated Hollywood mansions as passion projects, and released her first original song, A Lifelong Dream, just months before the end. Off-screen, she was exactly who she appeared to be on it, authentic, artistic, joyfully herself. Diane Keaton passed away on October 11, 2025, at 79 years old, leaving behind a filmography and a fashion legacy that no one, not even time, will ever replace. Susan Sarandon. She showed up to the Rocky Horror Picture Show in 1975 and never quite left the center of the cultural conversation. Susan Sarandon at 79 is one of those rare forces who made the decades work for her, rather than against her, getting sharper, more urgent, more commanding with every single year that passed. She was the rare actress Hollywood actually found more compelling as she aged. Thelma and Louise gave her feminist icon status. Bull Durham made audiences fall completely in love, and Dead Man Walking in 1995 delivered the Oscar she had been circling for 20 years. But she was never going to be just an actress. Her politics were as loud as her performances, anti-war, pro-human, relentlessly present in every fight she believed in. That outspokenness cost her professionally at times, and she never seemed to care in the slightest. She once co-owned a chain of social ping-pong clubs. She contained multitudes. At 79 in 2026, she continues balancing acting with political advocacy. Still, the most interesting woman in any room she enters, Reese Witherspoon. At 50, Reese Witherspoon is proof that the most dangerous thing you can do in Hollywood is underestimate a cheerleader. Or she won the 10-state cheerleading championship in high school, an early demonstration of the relentless, organized, quietly ferocious energy she would eventually bring to dismantling an entire industry's power structure from the inside. She arrived in the 1990s sharp and electric in Election and Cruel Intentions, signaling something genuinely exceptional. Then Elle Woods, in 2001, gave her the Oscar nomination and the global moment, but also the rom-com queen label Hollywood used to keep her comfortable and contained. She refused containment. She built Hello Sunshine, a production empire that brought Big Little Lies, Little Fires Everywhere, and The Morning Show into being. Stories about women, produced by women, built entirely on her own terms. She now mentors the next generation of filmmakers the way Diane Keaton once mentored her in 1991. At 50 in 2026, starring in and executive producing The Morning Show's 4th season, Reese Witherspoon isn't just in the industry, she is reshaping it entirely. Diane Lane. Sir Laurence Olivier saw her on a film set when she was 13 years old and called her the new Grace Kelly. That is the kind of opening chapter that sounds like fiction. But for Diane Lane, it was simply chapter 1 of a story that turned out to be far more complicated and far more interesting than any early prophecy could capture. By 19, the promise had cooled. Hollywood had moved on, as it tends to do with girls it crowns too young. She spent her 20s fighting back through smaller films and television, rebuilding quietly with the patience of someone who knew exactly what she was worth. The comeback was complete and stunning. Unfaithful in 2002, at 37, earned her the Oscar nomination that officially announced to anyone still paying attention that Diane Lane had been extraordinary this entire time. At 61 in 2026, she continues working with quiet authority, starring in the political thriller Anniversary and the Netflix series A Man in Full. The new Grace Kelly turned out to be entirely, perfectly herself, Drew Barrymore. By the time she was 13, Drew Barrymore had already been to rehab, survived a psychiatric facility, and legally emancipated herself from her parents, the little girl who charmed the entire planet in E.T. in 1982. Wide-eyed, fearless, completely unguarded, had been swallowed up by a machine never built to protect a child. What happened between that film and adulthood is one of Hollywood's most honest and heartbreaking cautionary tales. But then she came back, not cautiously, not carefully, but with the full, irreverent, indestructible energy that made her impossible not to love. She rebranded through The Wedding Singer, Never Been Kissed, and Charlie's Angels as a rom-com force of pure joy, producing every single one through her own company. The Wild Child became the rom-com queen. The rom-com queen became a daytime television phenomenon. In 2026, at 51, The Drew Barrymore Show continues turning raw human emotion into must-watch television. She didn't just survive, she became exactly who she was always meant to be, Courtney Cox. Before Central Perk, before Monica's obsessive need to win every game, a young Courtney Cox was pulled from a crowd by Bruce Springsteen during the filming of Dancing in the Dark, and for one perfect, unscripted moment, she was just a girl dancing with the boss. That spontaneous warmth was exactly what made Monica Geller so irresistible for 10 years on Friends. Competitive, loving, fiercely loyal, and somehow the emotional gravity at the center of the most watched sitcom on the planet. She could have coasted on that legacy. She didn't. The Scream franchise gave her a darker kind of screen life, sharp and scary in all the right ways. Then came the honest chapter, publicly acknowledging that years of facial fillers had quietly changed her appearance, dissolving them all in 2017 to simply look like herself again. That kind of courage doesn't make easy headlines. At 61 in 2026, Courtney Cox balances her lifestyle brand, Home Court, with directing and producing, still the most quietly underrated talent in any room, Liv Tyler. She was 11 years old, sitting in the audience at an Aerosmith concert, watching Steven Tyler perform on stage. And something about the way he moved looked startlingly, inexplicably familiar. She went home and asked her mother. The answer changed everything she knew about her own identity. That early lesson, that the story you've been told is never the whole truth, shaped everything about how Liv Tyler moved through the world and through her career. She became a 90s art house muse in Stealing Beauty, before Armageddon launched her into mainstream stardom. Then came Arwen, 3 Lord of the Rings films, on a character of such ethereal, quiet power that an entire generation claimed her as their definitive cinematic ideal. She carries the legacy of one of the most famous families in American rock history and has always worn it with completely unaffected grace. At 48 in 2026, she returns to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Betty Ross, completing a circle that started, like all the best stories, with a moment of pure, unexpected revelation. Kathleen Turner. The voice arrived before anything else. That low, honeyed, commanding presence borrowed from another era entirely. The era of Bacall, of Stanwyck, of women who simply didn't ask permission. Kathleen Turner walked into Body Heat in 1981 and, as Maddie Walker, invented the decade's most dangerous feminine ideal. Cool, calculating, and absolutely devastating. Romancing the Stone proved she could be hilarious. Preezy's Honor proved she could be terrifying. The War of the Roses proved she could outmatch anyone, on any terms. Then came the diagnosis nobody knew about. Rheumatoid arthritis in the early 1990s slowly crippled the body Hollywood had made iconic. The medication changed how she looked. The industry, with its characteristic compassion, responded with rumors about drinking and difficult behavior. The reality was simply a woman in serious pain, fighting to keep working with everything she had. She survived it all with ferocious dignity. At 71 in 2026, Kathleen Turner acts in character roles, tours with one-woman shows, and commands every stage she walks onto. Some voices never actually lose their power. Bridget Fonda. She was born into Hollywood royalty, granddaughter of Henry, daughter of Peter, niece of Jane, and somehow made the Fonda name feel entirely her own. Bridget Fonda in the 1990s was one of the most quietly exceptional actresses in American cinema, building work that deserved far more reverence than it received. Single white female in 1992 established her as a psychological thriller force. The Godfather Part 3, Jackie Brown, Point of No Return. She moved through the decade with an understated intelligence that great filmmakers kept returning to. Then 2003 arrived with a car accident that fractured her back, and a decision that followed quietly afterward. She would leave the screen entirely. She married composer Danny Elfman, raised their son in Southern California, and built a private life with what appears to be genuine, a lasting contentment. At 62 in 2026, she has explicitly stated she has no interest in returning to acting. It's too nice being a civilian. Some people find a far better story than the one Hollywood originally wrote for them. Sally Field. There's a moment every film fan knows, even if they weren't there to witness it. Sally Field at the 1985 Oscars, clutching the statue for Places in the Heart, saying, "You like me. You really like me." A line so honest, so unguarded, that it became the world's favorite shorthand for unbridled joy. But what the world didn't see was what she had been carrying in private for decades. The childhood abuse detailed in her 2018 memoir In Pieces was hidden beneath the wholesome smiles Hollywood required from her. From Gidget, from The Flying Nun, before she shattered that image entirely with Sybil in 1976. Now what followed was one of the most ferocious dramatic careers of the era. Norma Ray, Places in the Heart, Steel Magnolias, Mrs. Doubtfire, Forrest Gump. She dated Burt Reynolds for 5 years. He later called her the love of his life. She recently quipped she enjoys her independence. At 79 in 2026, Sally Field lives in Malibu, aging naturally and advocating fiercely. Every bit as real as she has always been. Christina Ricci. At 8 years old, she mercilessly taunted a rival for a school play role until he punched her, got him disqualified, and took the part. She later called it the first time her ambition truly revealed itself. That same dark, fearless energy became Wednesday Addams in 1991, a deadpan, gothic 11-year-old who drained every scene of warmth and made it completely, unnervingly magnetic. She created one of cinema's most enduring archetypes with complete chilling control. What followed was one of the most intelligent transitions from child stardom in Hollywood history, through Casper and Now and Then, into The Ice Storm and The Opposite of Sex, rebuilding herself as a serious, risk-taking adult actress. Monster in 2003 found her grounding a deeply difficult role with quiet humanity, largely overlooked while Charlize Theron received the Oscar. She kept working. She kept choosing complexity. At 46 in 2026, she is fully alive again. Yellow Jackets and Wednesday, returning her to exactly where she belongs. The original Wednesday Addams, in brilliant, inescapable full circle. Jamie Lee Curtis. She was a baroness before most people knew it. Lady Hayden Guest. That's the title Jamie Lee Curtis holds through her marriage to filmmaker Christopher Guest. And it suits her in a way that has nothing to do with aristocracy and everything to do with the quiet, sovereign authority she brings to every role she walks into. She arrived in 1978 as Laurie Strode in Halloween and invented the final girl, a horror archetype she would evolve, subvert, and deepen across 4 decades and multiple sequels. Then she broke the genre's walls entirely, hilarious in Trading Places, achingly human in A Fish Called Wanda, explosively physical in True Lies, all while privately battling an opioid addiction that began quietly after a routine surgery in the 1980s, a battle she eventually shared with extraordinary public honesty. She won the Oscar in 2023 for Everything Everywhere All at Once. In 2026, and at 67, she stars in the Amazon series Scarpetta and advocates fiercely against cosmetic surgery pressure on young women. Still a final girl, still standing completely upright, Shelley Long. She walked away from the most popular show on American television at the peak of its popularity, and Hollywood never quite forgave her for it. Shelley Long left Cheers in 1987 when Diane Chambers was beloved by millions, pursuing a film career that didn't deliver what either she or the industry had hoped for. That decision became one of TV history's most analyzed departures, a symbol, fairly or not, of ambition that overreached. But what that narrative always overlooked was the extraordinary achievement preceding it. Diane Chambers was a genuinely brilliant comedic creation, neurotic, pretentious, unachingly human, played with a precision that earned Shelley Long an Emmy and 2 Golden Globes. The Money Pit, Outrageous Fortune, The Brady Bunch movie showed real range and comic timing few could rival. And before any of it, she was a writer and producer winning local Emmys in Chicago. At 76 in 2026, she lives quietly and privately, her recurring role on Modern Family among her most recent appearances. The Cheers chapter was always only part of the story. Shirley MacLaine. She got her big break because another actress broke her ankle. In 1954, Shirley MacLaine was the understudy for Carol Haney in The Pajama Game on Broadway. Haney injured herself, MacLaine went on, and a Hollywood producer happened to be sitting in the audience that very night. That single moment of someone else's misfortune changed absolutely everything. So what followed was a career so vast, so rich, so perpetually surprising, that its full dimensions are almost difficult to comprehend. She played Fran Kubelik in The Apartment, redefining independent womanhood for a generation. She moved through decades of films from comedy to tragedy with seemingly effortless range. Then came Terms of Endearment in 1983 and the Oscar she had long deserved, followed by Steel Magnolias and Postcards from the Edge. Alongside all of it, she wrote best-selling books on reincarnation and metaphysics. Marching fearlessly to a spiritual beat Hollywood found simultaneously baffling and completely irresistible. At 92 in 2026, she is filming a road trip comedy called Lucy Boomer and was recently spotted enjoying her nightly cocktail in Malibu. Still gloriously, magnificently herself, Jane Fonda. She arrived in cinema as Barbarella, the space goddess, the sex symbol, and then won an Oscar playing a prostitute in Clute, just to make clear that no one was defining her terms but her. Jane Fonda has spent over 6 decades refusing every version of herself the world tried to impose. She was Hollywood royalty who stood against the Vietnam War, flew to Hanoi in 1972, and spent decades living with the controversy that followed, a wound she has reflected on publicly with honesty and complexity. She invented the home fitness video and became a billion-dollar industry while the film slowed. She returned to the screen in 2005 simply because she missed the camaraderie of a set, and came back harder than before. She received the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award in 2025. At 88 in 2026, she leads Fire Drill Fridays on her climate activism movement, inspiring Gen Z protesters with the same fire that has never, not once across 8 extraordinary decades, shown any sign of going out. Sissy Spacek. Before Hollywood discovered her, she was recording pop country music under the name Rainbow. That detail, Sissy Spacek, the future Oscar winner, releasing albums under a pseudonym before anyone knew her name, is the kind of unexpected human truth that makes her entire career feel somehow more real than most. She arrived as Carrie White in 1976, drenched in blood and telekinetic fury, and created a performance of such raw, unshielded vulnerability that Stephen King's horror became something much closer to genuine tragedy. She followed it with Coal Miner's Daughter in 1980, winning the Oscar by disappearing so completely into Loretta Lynn that the line between actress and subject became genuinely blurred. That naturalistic quality, Playing ordinary women with extraordinary inner lives was her signature, and it's almost impossible to teach. She avoided the Hollywood scene entirely, choosing instead a horse ranch in Virginia where her roots ran deep. At 76 in 2026, she continues in high-quality drama, recently presenting projects at Cannes and preparing for upcoming thriller work. Quiet, consistent, completely irreplaceable. Linda Hamilton. She had an identical twin sister who doubled for her in Terminator 2. Literally stood in Sarah Connor's shoes while cameras rolled during scenes where two Sarah Connors appeared together on screen. That practical, extraordinary detail belongs perfectly in a Linda Hamilton story because her career has always been built on doing the actual, physical, unglamorous, demanding thing that others would have handed off. She took Sarah Connor from a frightened waitress in 1984 to one of cinema's most iconic warriors, building muscle and mastering weapons with a dedication that seemed almost alarming. Then she spoke openly about her bipolar disorder, about her divorce from James Cameron, about Hollywood discarding women in their 40s with a casual cruelty she refused to pretend wasn't happening. She kept working. She kept showing up. In 2026, at 69, she stars in Netflix's final season of Stranger Things and recently appeared in Dark Winds. She once said she'd earned this face. Looking at everything she's been through, it is a remarkably, powerfully hard-won one. Deborah Winger. In 1982, she was the voice of E.T. She provided the creature vocalizations for one of cinema's most beloved characters, and virtually no one knew. That perfectly captures Deborah Winger, the most significant presence in the room, quietly doing the work, receiving none of the credit. She arrived in Urban Cowboy in 1980 with a gritty, unpolished honesty that felt almost confrontational in its complete refusal to be softened. An officer and a gentleman made her the most talked-about actress in America. Terms of endearment gave her an Oscar nomination and a co-star in Shirley MacLaine, who matched her extraordinary scene for scene. She was at the absolute top of her field when she simply walked away in the mid-1990s, tired of an industry that treated women as disposable commodities. And it was so remarkable that someone made a documentary about it. At 70 in 2026, she appeared as a gray-haired goddess for her birthday and worked selectively in character roles. She left Hollywood. Hollywood has never quite gotten over losing her. Bette Midler. She started her career performing in gay bathhouses in New York City, with a young Barry Manilow accompanying her at the piano. That image, the divine Miss M and the future Copacabana crooner working the bathhouse circuit together, is one of American entertainment's most delightful origin stories, and entirely, perfectly Bette Midler. Nothing about her arrival made conventional sense, and nothing about her subsequent career did either, and that has always been precisely the point. She crossed from cabaret to cinema in The Rose in 1979, proving she could devastate dramatically, or then Down and Out in Beverly Hills Beach's Hocus Pocus, a career that defied category, genre, and every rule about what a star was supposed to be. She holds Tonys, Grammys, and Emmys. She planted over 1 million trees across New York City through her own restoration foundation. She starred in Hocus Pocus 2. In 2026, at 80, Bette Midler celebrates with a full career retrospective, as loud, as alive, and as completely magnificent as she has absolutely always been. Cher. She is the only artist in history to have a #1 single on a Billboard chart in each of the last 7 decades. Read that again slowly. 7 decades. From the 1960s through the 2020s, Cher has placed herself at the very top, across musical eras that destroyed virtually every artist who came before and after her. And that somehow is only the second most interesting thing about her. She was already a television institution, a fashion revolution, and a cultural provocateur when she walked into Moonstruck in 1987 and won the Oscar, silencing everyone who had ever reduced her to spectacle. Silkwood, Mask, The Witches of Eastwick had already made the dramatic case. Moonstruck sealed it completely. Then came Believe in 1998, the auto-tune revolution, another breathtaking reinvention. She has never stopped moving and has never once apologized for any of it. At 79 in 2026, she is preparing for her 80th birthday, releasing a memoir, and appearing in global campaigns. The goddess of pop, still radiant, still reinventing, entirely without precedent.